Welcome back, everybody. Season 2, episode 9. This episode coming in about pregnancy. So, what, if any, exercises can you do when you're pregnant? Should you be jumping on a new exercise regime? Should you be continuing the exercise that you were doing? Should you be doing nothing at all? All very valid questions, and I'm about to jump into some of those answers. So, quickly to just throw out the last one, no, you should not be doing nothing at all. Please do something when you are pregnant. It is paramount to having a healthy pregnancy, healthy mind, and a healthy postpartum experience. I found studies to back that up, which I'll get into. But the main question of this is, some people ask, what can you do when you're pregnant? Can you do certain exercises that you were doing before? Someone may be into CrossFit. Can you continue doing CrossFit? Not sure. I mean, there's certain exercises that are too intense and too physically stressful, and physically stressful in ways like, maybe some awkward twisting or jumping and jostling and things like that are not relatively safe for pregnancy, and specifically early pregnancy. When you have the first 14 weeks, you're really taking care of your body, you're really nurturing that growing baby and making sure you're doing everything you can to keep you and baby safe. So, jumping into it, sticking with what you were doing prior to becoming pregnant is your bar. That's what you should be doing. If you were doing walking, continue doing that. Yoga, Pilates, bar, cycling, treadmill walking, running, lightly running, hiking, swimming. These are all exercises that are fantastic when you're pregnant. And the main thing with those, with yoga, Pilates, some of those different exercises can involve twisting. Keep in mind, you don't want to be twisting and causing any kind of crimps or cramps when you are early pregnant, even when you're later pregnant, because that little baby is in there. There's a lot of moving parts. And, the number one thing on all of the sources that I found was no twisting. And I remember hearing that through my pregnancies. So something to keep in mind with running and walking, or even cycling if you're super intense. Good for you if you are. Getting back to the point, keeping your heart rate at a moderate level is important. You want to ask your OB what that level is. So mine was 140 max. So he said, if you go for a run and you're wearing a heart rate monitor or a watch, whatever that's telling you your heart rate, do not let your heart rate get over 140. And that is probably going to be different for everybody based on my size, my age, and my weight. That was my number. So I remember when I was running and everything, if I'd be pushing it or it was a really hot day or something like that, you look down, you see you're at 135. I'd kind of peel back on my runs and slow down, just make sure that I wasn't pushing myself too hard and putting myself and my baby at risk. Now, something I did say before that was no jumping and jostling. Things like skip rope and burpees and mountain climbers. I mean, give that stuff a break. If you're wanting to do that in your first trimester, good for you. Don't do it though. It's not safe, and it's too intense. It's asking too much of your body in a very delicate stage. So maybe save that for second and third trimester if you're up for it. I mean, go for it. So the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists said in September 2024, some new parameters they had for exercise. So I jumped into that and was reading what they were saying. So they were saying about 150 minutes per week of moderate intensity aerobic activity is recommended for pregnant women. And aerobic activity is listed as something that is moving the large muscles of your body. So, the large muscles like those in your arms and those in your legs. So doing that in a rhythmic way. And what I think of there is dance, doing dance, raising your heart rate and sweating. Those are aerobic activities, and that can be in many different ways. You could be doing a Zumba class, you could be walking intensely, you could be walking at an incline or hiking, that type of a thing. Now, they say that 3 different major changes happen during pregnancy with your body that directly impact your exercise and your ability to exercise. So the first one is your joints are relaxing. And anyone that's been pregnant knows that you are more prone to, rolling an ankle or throwing out your hip or doing something weird to your arm in an exercise, because your body is able to move just a little bit further than it was before. And the reason those joints are relaxing is because you're making room for the new growing baby inside of you and eventually preparing for birth. So that is a wonderful miracle in itself. But during that time when you are exercising and you're not giving birth, you want to make sure you're not kind of overstretching or over pushing yourself, because take it from exhibit A over here. I did that where I just pushed myself a little bit too hard thinking, hey, I got this. I'm a superstar and I can exercise when I'm pregnant. And then you walk away going, ow, I feel something weird in my arm that I never felt before, or in my shoulder, because I overdid it. And you don't realize you're overdoing it threshold as much because your joints are relaxed. So whatever you're used to is different. Just something to keep in mind. Now, the other thing is balance. So the second thing that they brought up was the second big change is balance, because your weight is now in the front of your body. So it's shifting your center of gravity, and that can cause you to lose balance. And as you're probably aware, as you can kind of just conceptualize common sense, if you're losing your balance and you're falling when you're pregnant, very, very bad, very dangerous. Don't want to do that. So when your balance is shifting, it kind of changes the types of exercise you should be doing. So things that, you're jumping, maybe you're doing, what are those called? Like skaters. If you're doing skaters in the gym and you're jumping and you're kind of doing a lunge at the same time, maybe don't do those exercises because you don't have the same balance that you had before. And you're more prone to falling, tripping, just losing your balance and losing your center of gravity. And that could be very catastrophic, especially in early pregnancy. So try to stay away from anything that is massively affecting your balance. And in yoga, if you're doing certain moves where your balance is at risk, do the beginner ones where they say, if you're advanced, do this level, but if you're not advanced, do this. Well, do the not advanced things because you're pregnant. You don't have to prove anything to anybody. You're moving your body, and that is enough. You don't have to be, hitting all of those pinnacles with being like the best yoga person out there when you're pregnant. Now, third one, breathing. So your breathing changes with pregnancy because exercise increases your oxygen demands, and so does pregnancy. So one thing you'll notice is you're super out of breath all the time. You walk up the stairs and you're panting and it's embarrassing. And try to exercise on top of that. You are panting like a puppy trying to get any kind of exercise done. So your breathing changes, and all the more reason to make sure you are pacing yourself with an exercise. You are not pushing yourself too hard. Going back to what they're saying, you're doing moderate intensity exercise. You're not doing intense exercise. You are making sure that you're moving your body in a rhythmic way, raising your heart rate slightly, but you are not going crazy. Now, the other thing that they said in there, these are more warnings. So you want to avoid overheating for obvious reasons. Overheating can be very dangerous for your baby and for yourself. And you want to wear a sports bra. You will have, breast tenderness with pregnancy and early pregnancy as well. And wearing a sports bra, I wore 2 sports bras most of the time when I was trying to exercise, just because it's sensitive. Like you're trying to work out and things are moving around, and there's a whole lot more feeling in your breasts when you're pregnant that you didn't have before. So trying to kind of minimize the movement seemed to help me. Now, the last thing that they mentioned was, 2 more things. Second last thing they mentioned was avoid lying flat on your back. And I heard this and I just kind of went with it through pregnancies, and I never really thought about the reasoning why. So it turns out, and it makes sense, of course, the uterus is pressing on the large vein that's bringing back blood, that's returning all the blood to your heart. So if you're laying on your back, that uterus is pressing down on that large vein, and it is somewhat restricting the blood that is returning to your heart. So you will feel faint if you're laying on your back for too long. I found if I laid on my back for too long, it was just super uncomfortable. But there is actually a medical reason why you should not be lying flat on your back. So using yoga wedges or even a rolled up towel, things like that to get through certain exercises will be very helpful to you. Now, the last thing to get into is water. Of course, hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. Your baby is pulling so much from your body. When you're exercising, you are now pulling a lot more from your body and asking so much from your body. Increasing your water intake when you're exercising is huge. So that's what the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists had to say. And so I want to go back into just a couple of pointers from my own experience here. So I would recommend not working out until you feel faint. As someone that has been a fainter in my early life, whatever. Years ago, I used to faint more often than people would faint. So I am more prone to that. You don't want to work out to the point where you are feeling faint. If you're feeling like you're going to pass out, again, like I said before, if you are losing your balance and you're falling, that is catastrophic in early pregnancy and in many stages of your pregnancy. So if you're working out and you are feeling faint, like you could pass out, the best thing to do is then lay down on the ground on your side. Make sure you're propping, your hands between your knees. If I can kind of give you that visual, the thing that you do in CPR, that is important to make sure that you are not going to fall and hurt yourself or your baby. Now, movement and stretching are super important for blood flow when you're pregnant and when you're not. As I mentioned in an earlier episode, when you are pregnant, your blood volume increases by 50%. So that is a lot more going through. It's basically like a fire hose going through your veins compared to what it is right now as a garden hose. So you want to make sure that you are stretching, you are helping your body because your veins are all stretching and your arteries are all pushing so much more blood. You want to make sure that you are stretching, you're giving movement, you're assisting all of this massive change. Now, all that being said, one thing that I found in my third pregnancy was breath work, and simply just sitting down was huge. Sitting down, focusing on, pelvic floor breathing or just taking deep breaths from my chest were so helpful to me because then I could work into a stretch. I could just sit down, get in tune with my body, see what areas needed to be worked on. Am I feeling particularly weak when I'm standing? Maybe I need to do some leg exercises and stretch out my hip flexors and make sure that I'm taking care of my body because my balance has been changed and I'm really feeling it in my hips. Different things like that. Just breath work and simply sitting down were really, really important. And this is not the time to take on a new exercise regime. I found that in pregnancy, it's really exciting because you go, oh, you're going through this new university course of I'm pregnant and this is what's going to happen. And you're learning about all of this stuff along the way, all of the stages. And you get excited, maybe super motivated to take on a new exercise regime. Maybe, hey, I'm going to be a yogi and I'm going to be that type of a person now. It is not the time to take on a new exercise regime. Your body is already demanding so much from you. Whatever kind of movement you are comfortable with, that you enjoy doing the most, I would say stick with that. 9 months goes by in a flash. You'll be happy that you did something and you might as well do something that you enjoy. Take on the new exercise regime when it is just you in your body. It'll feel so much better and you will just be so much more equipped to take on something when you have those energy levels back and you don't have, these loose joints and everything going on in your body. Now, 2 more studies. I know, very exciting. This episode is chock-a-block full of studies. The Royal Women's Hospital out of Victoria, Australia, says that exercise helps to increase your energy, that it helps you to manage your weight, and helps you to better adapt to the physical changes that are happening throughout pregnancy. So this gives you confidence in your body's ability to birth, and it helps you to bounce back as opposed to doing nothing. They also say that you go through cardiac changes by simply being pregnant. So you are doing a cardiac exercise, an equivalent cardiac exercise, by just being pregnant because of that kind of enlargement that's happening in your heart to help with all of that blood flow. You are already working out, which now in hindsight, thinking about my OB saying, don't let your heart rate get past this point because your heart is already working so hard and you can't see it. Maybe you can feel it. I remember feeling kind of like I had a heart racing feeling all the time where that you'd have kind of a pounding chest. You were going through some mega changes there with your cardiac system. And the joint changes that I mentioned before from the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, the Royal Women's Hospital says that joint changes are mostly affected in the pelvis and the lower back in pregnancy. So a lot of people will experience pelvic pain. Something a good friend of mine experienced was called lightning crotch. I looked that up. It's a scary thing and seems very debilitating and very painful. And, that's a joint change in your pelvis. and lower back. So your lower back is basically just holding so much weight. It is stretching. If you think about your belly stretching, your belly is stretching, and all that skin around your lower back is also stretching. You're not just stretching in the front. Everything around you is stretching. And that includes all of your muscles, all of your tendons, everything in that area. So your lower back takes a beating, and those joints connecting everything together also take a beating. I know, positive, right? So the Royal Women's Hospital also says avoid getting too hot and never exercise with a fever. When I read that, I didn't even want to put that in here, because if you have a fever and you're pregnant, you're not working out. That's not what you're thinking about. However, avoid getting too hot. That is a very important one. You do not want to overheat your body, just like I said before, in that delicate stage of the first 14 weeks especially. But, you're not doing things like sitting in boiling hot tubs. You're not going in saunas. Same thing goes with exercise. You're not going out on a plus 35 day for a run and overheating your body. So something to be aware of. Do not get too hot when you're pregnant. Now, the last study is the National Library of Medicine. They did a study that was fascinating, and I'm saving the best for last because I found this fascinating. And it was a massive study, so I went through and I pulled the most important things to not create a big bore on this episode. They did a study in March of 2020 on physical activity patterns of 9,000 pregnant women. 9,345 participants in 2018, and the study was published in 2020. So in 2018, 52% of those women performed exercise in pregnancy. Now, the physically non-active respondents had higher cases of gestational hypertension, and they birthed prematurely, and they birthed to newborns with low birth weights, versus the physically active women. And these are the major takeaways, because I didn't want to go through, there's so much in the study and it would really be boring to say all of that on this episode. So the physically active women birthed vaginally more often, and they were more likely to spontaneously deliver. So they spontaneously went into labor and they spontaneously delivered. So they didn't need interventions. Therefore, it was linked, if you were physically active, linked to reduced ailments throughout pregnancy and reduced interventions through birth, which is massive. So exercise. Definitely exercise. The title of this episode, I started off with saying, what exercises can you do when you're pregnant? Well, you can do a lot. You are pregnant. Go for a walk, sit down, do some breath work, and stretch. Those things are so beneficial to a changing body. After reading these studies, it just hammers it home more. And as someone that was physically active through my pregnancies, I for sure think you should be exercising when you're pregnant. You just have to be aware of what exercises you can do and which ones you can't. So hopefully you had a few takeaways from this episode of what kind of exercises are healthy and what are the major things to stay away from when you are exercising. I hope that this helped you if you're pregnant, and if you are postpartum, you can go nuts. You can do anything. After you've had your 12-week checkup and you don't have diastasis and you're feeling good, you can go jump into CrossFit and get into the gymnasium and just go intense. You make up for all those 9 months. So hopefully this episode shed some light on the exercises that you can do when you're pregnant and the things that you should look out for. So thank you for joining me. I will catch you guys in the next episode that is more tuned to motherhood. So definitely kind of getting off of the immediate pregnancy and postpartum trend I've been on and getting back into a motherhood episode, which I'm really excited about. So thank you again for joining me, and I hope you have the best day as a mom, pregnant woman, soon to be mom, wherever you are in your journey. Thanks for taking the time to listen, and I will catch you here at the next episode. Talk soon.